we waiting on anything?
All set.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve tonight's agenda for the Finance Committee meeting on June 11th.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 14th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, could we have a report on contracts? I would like to begin with the professional memberships, American School Counselor Association.
Hi, Gina Sorby, I'm the Senior Director of School Counseling Services for the district. And I'm requesting a renewal. We've had this request in the past for National and Local School Counselor Association professional membership. This is part of the TAP initiative priorities for world-class talent and being able to retain and have well-trained counselors in the district. They receive several access to membership. Part of their membership is access to periodicals, professional development, a ton of resources, newsletters, and as I mentioned, it's national for the ASCA, and part of the membership with additional fee is to include the local membership of the Providence School Council Association. Let's see, we are using the school-based mental health service grant, which is part of this request. Memberships, we have around 60 counselors to 61 exactly. And we have 10,919 pounds.
Not that breaks down to
I believe 179
per person.
for both memberships.
I note that on the finance summary form, this says that it's a new contract, but
We didn't have it last year because we didn't have the funding for it, but previous years we've had it. As part of the service with the social workers and the psychologists as well for their national association.
great.
Just one side, this is not, maybe not even a relevant question, but I noticed that it includes liability insurance. Presumably,
For school counselors, yeah.
the school counselors are covered by the liability insurance.
Right, I guess it's additional,
If you supplement all insurance if they choose to
right.
buy it or something.
It's part of the membership.
All right. Are there any other questions from the committee? Are there any questions from anyone else about this? No? Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Yes, I move to approve the professional memberships, American School Counselor Association.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so carries unanimously. And if we could move on to the next item, which is the special education staffing contracts. So we could go through those all together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Julie Driscoll. I'm the manager of related services. And there are several hard to fill areas, especially speech pathologists and school psychologists. So we are respectfully requesting to have contracts with agencies that can fill those high need areas in order to meet the requirements of children's IEPs and deliver the services that are required under. Would you like me to look at each agency?
That's,
And nursing too. And nursing.
so, how do you, I'll get the sense of the room on that. How do you feel about that? Would you like to go one by one? And
I think that's probably best, but even just a few words on each one, and I think my question would be whether we've worked with each
Mhm.
agency before. Some of these names look immediately familiar and some of them maybe should look more familiar than they do. So
Yeah.
if you could
Sure.
just,
Say,
Couple
just a couple of words
sentences.
about it.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So Ali Behavioral Health, we have worked with previously. They're a local agency and they've met our need for behavior technicians who assist in the classroom.
We utilize a lot of the support from that agency for some of our autism and our ECS classrooms.
The Idaho Healthcare, we have worked with, and they provide nursing services. So students who are medically fragile and have high medical needs and require a nurse in the classroom with them, they provide CNA or LPN to those students. CBS therapy, we have worked with in the past. They're a local agency. They have provided speech pathologists, teacher assistants, occupational therapists, and they also have been able to provide bilingual therapists, which is it's even more difficult to find a bilingual speech therapist. They've completed a lot, and they always are able to provide someone in person, which is nice. Epic, we have also worked with them in the past. They currently provide another bilingual speech therapist on the preschool team and in person. Maxim, again, they provided nursing services for those students with fragile medical needs in the classroom.
We also use Maximum also for if we have nurses that are out and we want to fill in for nurse, we need nurse substitute, we utilize them also for that.
New England Psychological Solutions, we have not worked with them in the past. However, school psychologists are difficult to find. They are a local agency. Dr. Ruth Jarketta, who started the agency, was a school psychologist in several Rhode Island districts. Stepping Stones, we currently work with. They've provided filled most of our speech vacancies. And they're very responsive to our needs.
TA sometimes too.
Sunbelt, we also currently work with. They have been able to provide in-person speech therapists and bilingual therapists. Edu Healthcare, we have not worked with in the past, but in their proposal, they did have several candidates available locally.
and for Edu Healthcare, was that speech?
That was speech, correct. Oh, here it is. I skipped over the therapy spot. I
Yeah.
apologize.
It's okay. There's a lot of.
I was confused.
So the therapy spot, who goes under pediatric development services, again, we have not worked with them, but they did have, they're new, but they did, offer, they did have some therapists available, speech therapists in person.
My other question, I really appreciated this memo from your department along with purchasing and finance to explain kind of the RFP process. And if anybody's curious about that, you can see that attached to our agenda tonight. If you know, I understand that this varies, but like about how many students might these groups in total be serving? Is that really hard to answer?
Well, I can give you an idea for speech. We have about 13 vacancies, what we've averaged this year.
Yeah.
We filled some for next year, but we have had about 13, so 10 vacancies after the hires.
At least 600 students.
I would say 600 to 1,000 roughly that they would service. And that would be pre-K on up. And psychologists, I think we have about this year, seven, but we've hired maybe two, so we might have about 5 vacancies still left. So,
So, I've read through these, but I'm just, it's a lot to take in at once. So, the companies that are new that you'll be working with, those are duplicative of other vendors that you have worked with who provide similar services. So if one of them doesn't pan out, we're not,
so other districts utilize these same companies also, and so sometimes if we are in need and they can provide, we can at least have other options and go to the next company.
And if I can add about in-person services, Stepping Stones has really been great, and they provided, they filled most of our speech vacancies, but they were virtual. And obviously, in person is best for everyone, so reaching out to these new companies might yield some in person.
And was that part of the scoring metric for the contract for the tenant who selected out of the
Yes, being able to.
the ability to do in person? I had one other question, which was just that, so I know these are tough, and this might be more for the finance department. These are tough contracts to calculate because it's as needed and you're not sure where the staffing ability is going, capability is going to come from. So, so when this is sort of, if we were to go track this down to the budget, like where this, you know what I mean, where these funds are budgeted, are we budgeting for, and my math might be wrong here, but it's like the total of these contracts is like $6,400,000. So are we budgeting for $6,400,000, or are we budgeting for a lower number, sort of under like 80% of that, understanding that like we're leaving money in the budget for each of these vendors, but we're not necessarily going to use all of it. You know what I'm
No, I
saying?
know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would defer to Chris and PC, but he can't do it. But I know he's the one that kind of gave us these amounts. These are not to exceed amounts. We don't expect to spend this money. This is in the event that we need these services. We have redundancy of service providers and whatnot. There's a lot of crossover, so it's duplicative, but we don't expect to spend all this money.
Yeah, okay.
So it's currently budgeted for,
It is currently budgeted.
at this contract price. If we need to go over, we'd have to come back.
Right, okay, so, right, okay, great, that's good. I just kind of, it's hard to keep track of all of those things, sometimes a lot of moving pieces. So I don't have any other questions. Did you have any other questions? Chris, you wanted to raise?
I did not have any other questions about this branch. I don't know.
And next year, you'll see this on the goods and services summary roster, so that was. You won't see these individually, because we'll be in year two, year 3 the following year. So this will be incorporated in line summary.
Okay, so that, I don't know, do we have any other questions? Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, nice. No? Okay, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion to approve.
Yes, I make a motion to approve item 4.2, special education staffing contracts for the following vendors: Elite Behavioral Health, Maxim Healthcare Services, Bayada Home Healthcare, CBS Therapy, Epic Special Education Staffing, New England Psychological Solutions, Sunbelt Staffing Solutions, The Therapy Spot, doing business as Pediatric Development Services, Edu Healthcare, and Stepping Stones Group LLC.
All right, I'll second that motion. All in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Okay.
Can we have the report on item 4.3, the through monitoring report contract?
Sure, Sandy Stewart, Chief of Student Support Services. I oversee pre-K. I'm here joined with me by Mindy Mertz, who's our pre-K special ed manager. So tonight we're asking you for your approval for through consulting for up to $50,000. This is not a new contract. We have had previous contracts with through. So the district entered into a settlement agreement in November of 2023. It was a case where I referenced, you'll notice I have the case number on page 3. And we entered into a settlement around two parts of our pre-K department, particularly around our evaluations and the number of placements or classroom space for students. And so we've made tremendous progress towards meeting that goal. However, we have had to extend our agreement. This is our second extension. And our extension currently now is by November 1st of 2024. And so as part of that agreement, 25, yeah, thank you, 25, I'm still part of this agreement, the court ordered that we would have a court appointed monitor, which they appointed as through consulting. And so that's why you will see that they were sole source, because they were particularly named in the suit as our monitor. And so what we're asking from you today is in the amount of up to $50,000. We have 2 reports. We just had something filed yesterday or today with our new agreement. And so there will be 2 reports, one on September 15th and the other one on October 15th. And so in order to do that, we do have to pay through. It is our responsibility to pay through to prepare the reports. And so roughly each report is around 15, it could be 15, 16, it depends on how much of the data that they're needing to look at and review. And so that's about the average of what we've been spending. And normally as part of this agreement, we meet with them often. Mindy and I meet with them quite frequently to review our data, review all of our number of evaluations that are coming through our teams, all of the students who are receiving services and whatnot. And so we're asking for the money. I've broken it down on the last page, thinking usually an average number of hours they spend on the reports are about 70 hours. And so it could be up to 25,000, but it's usually averaging at 16. So I've kind of made it to the max just in case. And I did that for the September and also the October report.
So how much is when we passed the last extension, do you know how much those ended?
They're about the same. They're about averaging 16 to 17,000.
The 2 that just were done since we passed since we
The
last.
one we usually do right now, which will now be reported in our September, is a little bit more because we're closing out the school year and it's with the rollovers. So it usually takes her a little bit more time. But in the past, just so you're aware, when we first initially started in the agreement, we were having the reports, having to do them monthly. And so in the last extension, it was kind of every other month. And so now they've agreed that we would just do 2. And then we're hoping by November 1st, our goal is to be completely finished with the agreement. And we're working really hard to do that. So we're hoping. We've made some tremendous progress, so we're excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did they give any reason why? Because I think there was some uncertainty about whether they would want additional reports after.
They were kind of going,
That was maybe
so the
outside the
lawyers,
scope of this
yeah,
committee, but I'm just
the
curious, yeah.
lawyers obviously will meet,
go back
their
and forth.
lawyers and everything go, and so they just let us know that they agreed, that it will just be 2. But sometimes they do ask for more, but they did file, this week that it would just be the 2, and it was named the September and the October report.
And just to make sure I understood your point, so the September report may likely be more comprehensive because that's going to capture sort of end of this school year,
Yes.
2025.
Yes.
And then is the October, could you just tell us a tiny bit of context about would that be more just for the registration for?
I think what they want to just make sure, and I'll try to think what they're thinking on the other pieces, that October report would be the final report before the November 1st deadline. So what they want to do is make sure that our data is clean. And so one of the pieces that we have been trying to do is work through some of our backlog of students that we're still trying to get in for IEP and for evaluations. And so that really is the one piece that we're still continuing. As far as the placements with all the additional pre-K classrooms that we have been able to open up in the additional sections, we've had seats for students and we're super excited about that all year. So that's something that we've made immense progress with. It's the continued backlog that we're still working through. And that's why we're projecting that we'll be done. We're gonna be working right through the summer, so we hope by November 1st. So they want that October report to make sure that our data is reflecting that we would be completely done with that backlog.
I think I understand that. So basically, the September is year-end report, and the October report is basically a final
Yes.
report
I
that
asked for a while.
incorporates any data that maybe took some while to process.
To show that we actually
Did the thing.
got it to where it needs to be.
And it's really, like I said, just that backlog. The other piece where we've done really well, so we're hoping that extra little bit of time.
Data always lags reality.
Yeah, I mean, the second time we renewed, we did it for a whole year, and so I feel really, excited that I think we will really be done by November. So we're not even going the full year, we're only going a few extra months. So, yes.
Did you have any other questions? Does anyone else have any questions?
I have something, a question, it's just, for clarification, under the justification of vendor selection in the answer, it says the amount, I'm assuming the amount is 30,000, but it's 300,000,000.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Is that 30 or 300?
It was 300, that was
Oh,
the
it's
original,
300.
it was the original contract. Yes, I tried to give you a little bit of a history of where we started with them and, how we've had to give some additional, but yes, that should have been 300.
That's helpful.
Thank you, Bill. Could you just make sure that can you make sure that the corrected version gets uploaded, just in case, just for the sake of having nice records?
I'll send it to you.
That would be great. Thank you. Are there any other questions? No?
I make a motion to approve the through monitoring report contract.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. And
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting of the finance committee at 5:55 p.m.
seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes. And that is, I think that's a record.
That's maybe the fastest we've ever done.
I think this is one of our fastest finance meetings I've ever been to too. Especially when we had like 10 special ed contracts.
Well, it was super helpful. All of the materials ahead of time were super
Oh, good.
Yeah,